Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 375, and today we're going to be doing battle with Annie Jhin. And so to get you up to speed, if you haven't been watching daily, we've been battling through Krios' lineup from the Runeterra Open. We can pull it up on the YouTube real quick if you're not familiar with how to get here. The Mastering Runeterra did the coverage. They posted it all on YouTube. You need to click on the live section instead of the videos section, and the deck list should pop up. And we're lined up here in the finals where Krios played up against Drissoth. And so he brought a very interesting lineup. He was looking to ban out the likes of Tristana, and then have good matchups against Samira Fizz and Karma Set. And so he got that matchup he was looking for here in the finals. You can watch through on your own if you want to see how that one ends. But in the previous couple of videos, we've covered off on Samira Jinx. We've covered off on Jarvan Shen. Today we'll be playing Annie Jhin. Or Jarvan Shen. Today we'll be playing Annie Jhin. And then in the next couple of videos, we'll take this lineup into the Ruthless Rumbles, see if we can replicate some of that success. And so Annie Jhin, it's a very interesting deck. It's an aggro deck that's been out here since both Jhin and Annie were in the meta. Once that kind of combo came together, this deck really came alive. So it's been running around for 6 months, years, so I don't entirely remember exactly how long, but it's a deck that has apparently survived the rotation and now has an opportunity to come out here and thrive. And it's a deck I never really gave much credence to. If you want to think of myself as an aggro deck lover and enjoyer, you would think that Annie Jhin is something that would fit right in there, but I always got this kind of like stigma about it, in the sense that whenever we played against it, it always just felt like the opponent was getting lucky. And so I couldn't really like explain it beyond that, but it always felt like we were in these situations to where we were pulling ourselves ahead, and opponent just had that one last stun that they needed to finish off the game, and they were just, oh, so super lucky every time. And you have to really stop and consider if they're getting lucky literally every single time, perhaps it's not lucky at all, and the deck is actually good, and they've been setting that up. And so it's very interesting. The play patterns evolve very differently than a kind of typical aggro deck you would see out of something like Pirates, to where you slam all these dudes on the board, you attack, you make some trades, you get some damage in, you play something to refill your hand just a little bit, you flood the board again, you attack, you do a little bit more damage, then your opponent is starting to get ahead, right? They've withheld the onslaught of bad units that you've sent towards them, but then you finish off the game with some Decimates and some Noxian Fervors. And that's just not how this Annie Jhin deck really plays itself out. It relies heavily on the stuns that we're going to be getting from Solari Sunhawk and from the Stage Hand and from the Lotus Traps coming out of Jhin. And you're trying to set up these situations to where, if you want to imagine your opponent just playing the game on curve, and so they play a 1-drop into a 2-drop into a 3-drop into a 4-drop, these stuns are going to let you shut down the most appealing blocker that your opponent has. Typically, that's going to be their most expensive blocker, but it puts them in the situation to where they have to make some trades that they normally wouldn't want to. And so what you typically see coming out of the Legends of Runeterra is the strength of an open attack, right? You're just saying, my board is better than your board. I'm going to attack before you get the opportunity to play a unit, right? If you assume that your 4-drop is better than a 3-drop and a 3-drop is better than a 2-drop, then if you give your opponent an opportunity to play a 4-drop on this turn 4, then that's probably better than all of the units that you have on board. But Annie Jhin is able to kind of flip that idea on its head, in the sense that if your opponent is playing on curve, you can shut down that big unit, their most effective blocker, and the remainder of your smaller units should be able to crush through for some additional damages. And so that's the kind of general idea that we're going to be looking for with this deck. We want to flood the board, but in the sense of not like Pirates, right? Where both decks play a lot of really cheap and aggressive 1-drops, but we're going to flood the board, not really be looking to trade in so much as shutting down our opponent's units with stuns and then using that as a means to crash through a bunch of damage. But at the end of the day, we still have a lot of fantastic ways to close out the game. Noxian Fervor still here hanging out. Annie with the ability to generate Tibbers, and then Jhin with his flip ability just doming the opponent for 4 on attack. You have a lot of ways to come in and close out these games through burn spells, even though your attacking combats may not be that good anymore. The last couple of notes I'll make with this deck, I feel like this is a very good one to pick up for a couple of different reasons. Number one, I feel like as I've really tried to get in the groove and the grind with Annie Jhin, I feel like this is one of the more challenging aggro decks that I've ever had to play. And, as we talked about that experience to where it felt like we were just besting all of our opponents, but at the end of the day, they were, air quote, getting lucky against us, it's very easy to kind of get in that mindset and dismiss it. But it's very challenging to play. But the kind of upside to that to me is I feel like a lot of the misplays become very obvious. And so if you were watching our previous video playing Shen Jarvan, I felt like we got into a couple of games to where if we'd played just a little bit differently, we probably could have gotten some wins. And I couldn't quite pinpoint where those things were going wrong. I feel like with Annie Jhin, it's typically in your face and obvious when you make a misplay, and then that's a little bit easier to clean up in your future games. And I think it's also important in terms of the Eternal formats coming up. When you have cards like Jhin that can include the fast spells, slow spells, and skills from all of the factions. This is an ability that gets more and more powerful as more cards are added into the game, right? And so if we're looking at a deck like Pirates, it's kind of challenging for Riot to add more cards into the Pirates deck. If they add a new aggro unit like Samira, sure, she can be slotted in there pretty easily, but it's tough for Riot to kind of directly enhance those styles of decks to where they're going to be plenting spells and units with skills. And so as the card pools grow, Jhin just has a larger opportunity to include cards within his deck building. And so if every faction has 100 cards in it, you might get, if you're playing Pirates, you might have 100 cards from Noxus, 100 cards from Bilgewater. But with Jhin, he may have access to like 400 or 500 cards just on the basis of how his abilities work. Now, those numbers were completely made up, but the idea holds true that he should get stronger as more cards are added to the game. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's jump on in. You know what we're going to do before the battles begin, though. We got to come in here and pay the pay-to-win price. And this one was very surprising to me. I was very surprised that we haven't premiumed up Pirouette just yet. Such an incredibly powerful card. Works so nicely in all of the aggro decks in the world, picking up tempo, cleaning up the opposing blockers that still have 1 health, making some activations for Plunder in the Plundery decks, or activating things like Jhin in terms of the Lotus Traps. Just an all-around fantastic card. And so with that one being premium, I expect it to be extra strong today. It's definitely going to get us at least 9 wins in our 8 games. All right, off to battle. What is this? I've seen so much Nora and so much so much Bard over the course of the past few days. It's been wild. But Teemo Fizz Nora, I would assume that this is some flavor of Elusive's deck, and we're going to have to kind of watch out with our 1 health units. But I'm still going to mulligan everything away. I'm going to look for a 1-drop. I don't really want to be starting out with the Stage Hands. It's a card that you can most certainly play on turn 2 or turn 3, but it's more along the lines of a 4-drop or a 5-drop. So we'll go ahead and send it away and mulligan in for the 1s. And so if you want to think in that idea that we put forth as to where we want our opponent to be playing on curve, adding their expensive unit, and then we just stun it, that should look abundantly clear as we look at cards like what's your name, the Stage Hand, in the sense that, say it's turn 5, we add a 2-drop to the board, the opponent plays their 5-drop, and then we're able to stun their 5-drop with a secondary 2 and just punch in for those big blasts of damage. All right, so a bit awkward here. I'm not wanting to stop this Teemo. This opponent's not playing a Teemo deck. They're not playing a Puff Cap deck. They're playing Elusives, and so we can kind of freely come in and just take the damage from him. I was hoping that we would have been able to just get the Mana Soul student on board this turn to play a little bit more on curve, but it didn't pan out that way.
Remember the objectives.
So one of the things I was kind of worried about against this deck earlier is we have units like Legion Saboteur that just have 1 health. We have a lot of opportunities for the opponent to kill our units with group shots, kill them with pastry tosses. I'd like to keep our units above 1 health if we can, but just have to see how these things continue on. And what the fuck is this? Shield Vault onto our Witness. Okay, it's not something I expected to say against a non-Pantheon deck, but sure thing. We'll come in, we'll take the stun against the Nora. She's going to be the most likely good blocker for the turn. Now we got a pretty decent looking attack here. Opponent gives up on their Teemo. Now we're looking to get to this part to where we can maybe burn them out. If we get to start adding in the Mana Soul students, gives us a way to reach over top of the opponent's board of random Nora stuff, do damage with this with the Mana Souls. What a hit! What a monster! Just randoming into the Sting Officer. Phew, that's scary. But all right, my dude. All right. See if we can't end this. We're getting really close. We should be able to drop the stage hand, get a stun onto Nora. This would be an absolutely fantastic place for a pirouette to hit. But look at this. Jesus, he's hit elusives on literally every single portal. It's insane. But is what it is. Let's see if we can't get ahead here and finish this one off. So I'm going to add in the Mana Soul student, then I'm going to follow up with Annie, then we're going to stagehand onto Nora. She's still the best blocker that the opponent has. I want to be able to come out here and attack with these Mana Soul students this round, but then perhaps have some of them survive into the next turn. Don't think it's going to quite pan out like that, but we got to fight for it. And interesting, opponent's not playing any cards here. Will they have 9 mana? What even blows us up here? That's very interesting. Is he just going to have like a double stun and a heal or something? I don't know. This dude's played so much weird shit. I'm not, I'm not entirely certain what to expect out of these cards. He just gives up on it. Interesting. That's so wild. Just has 5 cards in hand and passed with 9 mana up and just got annihilated by our dudes. Anywho, victory achieved. Victory unlocked. On to the next one we go. We got some kitties out here while we queue up as well. Everybody say what up, Pepper. Thank you for making your way into the YouTube. She's being nice. She's not like the other one. The other one that we were complaining about in the last video, just trying to sit on my feet when it's all fucking hot. This one, she's a lap kitty. She sits there, but she gets really excited when you start giving her scratches, and she starts doing that like that paw stomp thing. But she jams her claws into your leg when she does it, so it's very, very delightful. All right, though, on to the next one. Up against Samira Scion. Curious what that's supposed to amount to, but reasonable enough start. We'll hang on to the Sunhawk. It's a very powerful play on turn 3, and we already have our Annie for turn 2, and so reasonable enough unit to hang on to. All right, Annie's doing her thing. Still not entirely certain what to expect out of Samira Scion. I think this is typically a deck full of Mecha Yordles. There we go. Squeaker coming in. But I guess Rumble's not in the format anymore, so you gotta do what you can to get the Yordles in a different way. Alright, reasonable board though. I'm fine to let the Squeaker come in. All of our units get good combats against it. I would rather be attacking with Tusk Speaker and overwhelming as opposed to preventing the damage from the opponent. Now we get to drop in the Sunhawk. So we'll see. If you got like a smash and dash, that's going to be really depressing. That's the 4/4 for 3 mana. But outside of that one, there's not too many Mecha Yordles that I worry about here. He's just going to be adding like 3 2s or 1 4s to the board. Oh, God. All right, well, I think we got to get to swinging into this. Can we still have like reasonable turns with this guy on board? Like, I think we get the attack. We are like giving up on Annie flipping at this point, which is a little depressing, but we have the secondary Annie in hand, and we have like such a nice turn 2 turns from now to where we'll be able to open with the Sunhawk and then blast with the stagehand. I think it's okay to kind of give up on Tibbers just a little bit to get the second Annie on board and just try and spend all of our mana. Pirouette's huge. We could look to pirouette next turn instead of going for the 2 stuns. We can look to play the Tusk Speaker so it only costs 1 mana, or I mean we can just take the double bank into the next turn, I guess. But this is exactly what I'm talking about, and how you're able to take these games down, as to where we're going to be putting 3 stuns onto the opponent next turn and then just blasting through with everybody. So it's very powerful being able to crush in like that. Now this is quite interesting as well. He's making this attack with the Mecha Forcer, which I don't want to read into too much. I don't think he's out here just trying to get us. I'm not certain of the removal suite that this deck is playing, but it does give us an opportunity to kill off this unit with a pirouette. And so I think I want to take the opportunity to take it down to 1 health, and then just risk that the opponent may have a they might have a group shot or a pastry toss. I guess like pastry toss makes sense in this deck. Pie toss, whatever that one's called. Given that it lets them given that it lets them like create the card and then discard it to something else. But interesting. But big old board here. We unfortunately didn't have the mana to get Jhin down, but just got the stuns on literally his entire team. We'll see if he follows up with another unit here, but he's about to get absolutely domed on this round. A little unfortunate we didn't have the mana to get Jhin down, but maybe he'll be ready for battle next go around if things come to that. Opponent rage quit. Not quite. They hit the surrender button. Alright, GG. But see, that play pattern is so much different than you would get out of Pirates. Like, it's very easy to think the decks are similar because you play so many 1-drops and have such aggressive starts that you're looking for, but that angle right there where you just stun 3 or stun 4 of your opponent's units all in the same turn, it's not something that Pirates is capable of doing. Pirates is more of a kind of grind him down style deck, as to where this has a little bit more finesse to it, if you will. Not bad, not bad. 1 LP away from that nice level. Too bad we missed it. Everybody out there complaining about the LP, and so I might as well drop in my complaints as well. They didn't let us hit 169. Alright, though, up to battle against Karma set. Reasonable start. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the Pirouette and the Demolitionist. The Demolitionist technically costs 2, but it's not a card you really want to be playing in the early game. This is a nice finisher or activator, and not so much a early game aggressive unit. Now with this, we can start with the Pigeon. If we had a Jhin, then I would go for the Crackshot Corsair, but I don't expect opponents to have ways to deal 1 point of damage for 1 mana, but in the event that they do, or in the event that they play Acorn, the Hex Technician, we at least know that our units get to survive this way. I wonder how greedy we can get with this. Like, I don't expect him to really want to block with Acorn, but if we're able to like kill it with the Pirouette and also get a stun, that's not a bad turn. Like, if opponent drops a 3/3 on this turn, and then we get the chance to get a stun and get a kill, I'm not complaining. Alright, so we'll kill the Acorn, put the stun onto the Shadow Assassin. We don't get to grow the Crimson Pigeon this turn. That's a bit of a bummer, but we still get to blast for 9 damage. It's very easy for opponent to have Mystic Shot or High Note at this point anyways. It's not like the Pigeon's super safe. What do y'all think about this? We're doing battle against Ahri's biggest fan, and they're not even playing Ahri. Kind of disappointing. You don't seem to be that big of a fan, my dude. Seems to be a fan of running down that rope, though. Maybe he just conceded. How cool would that be? Just generating rage quits left and right. I dig it. I dig it. Go back to League, bro. Queue up your mid laner. Ari was one of the funner champions in Teamfight Tactics as well. I never played her in League, but if you play TFT, you kind of got to play with everybody. And she had some interesting abilities. She had that nice AoE with the, I don't know, circle toss, whatever her skills are called. And then she'd jump around the map and do crazy shit. It was always a fun one to watch. That's one of the things you get with TFT. Like I really miss it. Like I play Battlegrounds because that's what my brother plays. I do everything I can to just get him to switch over to the world of Riot instead of Blizzard. Like I got to point out over the course of the past few days, Blizzard just had that big problem with Overwatch, to where they kind of announced that they were reworking the game to add in a PvE mode, and then they scrapped it later. Now that does sound a little familiar to Riot, just a little bit, in the sense of Runeterra making the big announcements to switch into PvE mode with Path, and then kind of backing out of it. But they're still supporting Path, and you didn't have to pay $60 for one copy of Runeterra and then 60 copies for a second version of it, just for them to have you say the second version wasn't really necessary. And so I think there's a lot of stark differences between the way the two games played out. But nonetheless, I can't get him to switch. He's locked in on the characters in the let's take the skill in the Blizzard universe, and I refuse to go back as much. And so I play the Battlegrounds because that's what he plays. But so much more beautiful to watch TFT. That's what I was trying to get at here, is get to sit around and just watch the battles and see all the cool shit flash at you on the screen. Like playing Hearthstone's just fucking boring. It's just like little rectangles blasting each other back and forth. It's nowhere near as cool. All right, though. Back into the action here. Fairly easy stuns into Seraphine. We're getting to build up our board here quite nicely. I wouldn't be surprised if opponent comes at us with an Aftershock or with a Mystic Shot or something to kill one of our units for the turn, but we're definitely starting to get ahead. And we've got this nice board to where we can probably get Jhin down and get a lot of power out of him. Now with this, I think we actually want to deal the point of damage to Annie. And so if we say make this attack, right, opponent's going to have their incentives to be put Zonite Urchin in front of the Sunhawk because he gets the trade, and then put the Acorn in front of Legion Saboteur. But if he blocks Annie, Annie's still just going to get the kill on the unit, and he shouldn't be getting 2 kills on our dudes. And then if opponent is going to have something like a Mystic Shot, he's going to kill any of our units anyways. And so Annie is not that much safer at 2 health than 1. You do have to worry about stuff like the AoE, whatever that's called, Caustic Rift, but I think Annie is much more reasonable. And see how this is panning out to where opponent doesn't get to kill our Sunhawk now. Get to do a little bit of magic with that on the next turn. Now, how close are we to Lotus Traps? And so if you actually have Jhin on the board, your Lotus Trap does stun the weakest enemy. And so if we get to play Jhin this turn, we need 2 more skills for a trap. We have 1 skill in the Tusk Speaker. If we pick up a second one, we'll get to stun one of these units out pre-combat. It's a bit of a bummer when you have to take your stun in the middle of combat. It does prevent damage, but it doesn't... It doesn't, just completely remove that unit before the combat. All right, so I'm going to start playing skills. I would like to be able to just activate our Jhin as quickly as we can, and so that's the idea with how we're taking this angle. Now, I think we want to put the Demolitionist onto Jhin. It's a little dangerous, given that the opponent can now hit him with like Aftershocks, or they can block him with Seraphine and then hit him with a Mystic Shot. But I ultimately worry about opponent having a Caustic Rift, and if they have the Rift to get the AoE, then we're just completely annihilated. So he had the answer to Jhin, a bit of a bummer, but we get to blast for 7 on this turn, and then we have the Noxian Fervor in hand to get the kill if the opponent taps out here anytime soon. Pirouette, it's close to a kill. So how much do we worry about getting pranked here? I mean, we have infinite mana pretty much. I think we can just let it go. Try and save save the Pirouette for next turn. Now opponent's like, oh F. Bust got the ways to boom me. The formulas. Okay. Still feels a little dangerous. Seraphine's nowhere close to flipping. I think we're okay. And see, we can still just play everything, even though he pranked us. I don't think spewing off a spell was really the way to go here. Rip. GG, my dude. All right, on to the next one. Got them even 200 LPs now. Is that better or worse than 169? I can't tell. It's tough to tell. All right, up against Samira Fizz. Again, it's a good matchup. I didn't like the idea of playing against Samira Fizz, given because the deck will just beat you anyways. It doesn't matter that you're like a 5%, 10% favorite over this deck. It has draws that you just literally can't beat. And spoiler alert, that's what happened in the in the grand finals of the Open tournament. Drissoth had one of those draws that just doesn't get beat, and was able to take down the tournament with the Samira Fizz, even though it was facing bad matchups in a lineup determined to beat it. All right, Jagged Taskmaster on board. Send in the squad. There's some argument to just like, I wonder if we should really be taking this damage onto the Tusk Speaker. It's like quite relevant. The opposing deck plays Pirouettes. They'll play parlays. There's a lot of ways for them to deal this damage, and it's like they're just gonna block the they're just gonna block the Crimson Pigeon like literally every time. I don't think opponent ever like switches, right? If we don't do the support, do they ever switch to just blocking the Tusk Speaker? I'm not certain. But nice interaction for the round. We get that shutdown on Samira so she doesn't get any quick attack challenges on us. We'll have to make a decision next turn if we want to come in with the Mana Soul Student Crimson Pigeon, or if we want to go a more stun-heavy route. See, there's a Pirouette. And it's tough. I think if we had a skill on board, so if we had a way on board to activate the Mana Soul Student, then I think we would be okay with playing it. But given that we don't, I don't think that's where we really want to be. It's a little awkward with our mana, though. I'll switch over into the stage hands. Maybe we'll get her down a couple turns from now.
We are at the threshold of something great.
So we do at least get positive attacks in the face of the Samira, right? We get to attack with the pigeon, put the damage onto the stagehand, and then our real units are all bigger than Samira, and then otherwise she just doesn't want to block the stagehand. There is the chance that she flips this turn. She's at 4 of 6, but I don't think that changes how we go about this. We're never not attacking with the Sunhawk on this turn, and so it worked out nice. He just didn't have it, and see, now our units are big enough to where Samira doesn't just kill them. It is a bit of a bummer with our Sunhawk, though. Our Sunhawk would be stunning the Jagged Butcher. This is interesting. Opponents only got one card in hand. Do they ever not attack here? I think it's okay if they don't. Now they powder Pandemonium. That's gonna force our hand a little bit. I think we just need to go for maximum damage next round. So if we assume all of our units are just going to get hooked by powder monkeys, then I don't think there's a real reason to add the stage hand. Now opponent's going to hit us for 6 plus 3. That's 9 for those of you doing math at home.
This should be fun.
Oh shit, I forgot the Sunhawk wasn't getting I just assumed all of our units were vulnerable forever. That could have changed things a little bit, but why is he attacking with Samira? That seems suspect. Maybe he just wants the flare in hand. What are we at? We're at 5. He's just on the have to burn you out plan. Oh no, you're real close to dead, dude. That seems a little suspicious to me. Alright, well, we'll lead with the stun on the Jagged Butcher. If he's got to be making a block this turn, we want him blocking with the Elegant Edge so that we can try and still block the Jagged Butcher next turn. But I think we're going to be okay here in that sense. Now that he's drawn Fizz, we just win the game, right? You know, he's only got burn spells in hand. So Fizz can block our 4, and then we're hitting for 8. That was enough. GG. Man, who wants to play a whole tournament of that? Just squeezing your cheeks over and over again against against Samira Fizz. I bet Krios has got the buns of steel after that event. Whew. Who needs drugs when you can get your heart rate up just playing just playing against Samira Fizz all day? Speaking of getting your heart rate up, I had a real bummer today. The tall boys of Red Bull, they just never stand up. They I don't know, some genius I'm sure designed that can. I'm sure there's a real reason as to why cans of Red Bull are the really skinny cylinders, whether or not that's for packaging reasons or marketing reasons or whatever reason. I'm sure there is one, but it's really good at falling over in cup holders in your car. And I lost about 10 ounces out of a 20 ouncer today, and it was kind of a bummer. All right, back to the games though. Hang on to the Corsair and the Sunhawk. Look for some other cheaper plays. Found them. We have to worry a little bit about our 1 health units here up against Alawi Swain. This deck most certainly these days plays both Parlay and Make It Rain, and so having the 2 health unit is certainly ideal compared to having to drop a 1-drop.
For me, the spirit dance.
Interesting. And if he's just like waiting on a tentacle slam, or if he just doesn't have anything. Okay, heavy metal's fine.
The waves still.
It's a bit of an awkward round in the sense that we can't use our Sunhawk, but our hand is way too good to just pass now. So we'll add in all 3 of our 1s. Give him a little opportunity to take the worst one down first.
Hello, new best friend. I'll shoot the wings off a bilge wasp.
Make it rain coming in, sure thing. Now our Annie will be safe, ready to take that same that same support damage from the previous game.
Not today.
It's another spot where I'm curious if we should just be accepting the 2 damage from the pigeon. You know, It's like opponent's gonna block the pigeon 100% of the time, and it's just never big enough. And now we have our Annie at 1 health. This is a matchup to where it is relevant, right? Again, we saw the one Make It Rain. They play parlay and stuff to cause problems. So, kind of tough. Now, this is interesting. I was wanting to just drop Mana Soul Student, but I'm leaning towards just putting the stun down on the Sea's Voice now. That's also going to keep the opponent from playing a Tentacle. Right, it's just going to give them an additional blocker. Extremely relevant on this stage, especially if their play next turn is like a Lowy, right? We find ourselves in the spot to where we can continually stun their big units. There's the parlay. Man, it's one of those spots I'm not certain with that support dealing the damage. You can get away with it in a lot of matchups, but I don't know if this is one to where that's actually fair. Now that we picked up Pirouette, I'm going to go for the Mana Soul Student, since we can get the Pirouette down onto the Nimble Poro and just clear out the blockers.
Stand and be tested.
Alright, so we'll put the stun down on a Lowy. This will probably cause us to trade the Mana Soul Student for the Sea's Voice. Are we fine with that? Punching opponent down to 7? I think we have to... we just have to go for it. Oh, wow. He goes for the value play? That's bold. We get those opportunities to burn him out now with the Mana Soul. I did not expect that. Oh boy, Pirouette. You're going to get to do your thing if opponent doesn't open. Alright, they're opening. Should still be good next turn. Like, this doesn't look like a lethal sequence of units. And then we have 2 stuns for next round. Looks like 13 coming at us. Okay. Now, the place where this is a little awkward is that we miss out on that 1 damage from the Mana Soul, not being able to play any units this turn. I worry about that one just a little bit. Now if we play Jhin, we can get it. Oh, no, we can't. Shit, we have to Sunhawk first. I was like, oh boy, if we play Jhin, then we're going to get that opportunity to get the 3 skills. We would have the Sunhawk, the one from the Mana Soul, and the one from the Pirouette, but a little bit short. Still might be okay here. Opponent, like if they go big with like the Leviathan, I think that feels kind of okay. And then if they end up playing something like,
Art requires a certain...
if they end up playing something like a Tentacle Slam, then that's where the world really starts to fall apart. I think we're just a little bit too short in this one. I'm looking at this now, and since we have Jhin on board, we could look to say deal 1 damage to Pablo, put the stun onto the Sea's Voice, so when we attack, Jin's going to kill off those 2 stunned units, but I think that's kind of where we're stuck. We don't have an answer to Alawi at this point. It's like 1 skill short. This looks out of order, whatever that is. Oh, it's a Disintegrate. I was going to say, you typically want your prize fight to the left of whatever is happening, but we can still win this one with Noxian Fervor. We'll see how this goes. We attack with everybody, trades Pablo into a 3. Oh shit, that's just lethal, isn't it? Oh no, does he have the answer? I kind of given up on this game anyways, but... Dang. I didn't realize how close we were. Alright, well he had his Noxian Fervor. Let's see if we draw ours. We deserve it. We deserve it. Nope. GG. But that shows what I was talking about at the beginning perfectly, in the sense that it's very easy to kind of like identify these spots to where we made that support with the Crimson Pigeon, and it's like, does opponent ever not block the pigeon here? And then if they're not going to block the pigeon, then there's no reason to deal the point of damage to Annie, especially as we're in this matchup to where opponent plays a lot of 1 damage pings, or as we were playing against Karma Set, that puts Annie in the range of now dying to a Caustic Rift. That's kind of like one of the things with the deck, in the sense that you know that was the critical point of the game, and you may or may not have messed it up, and it gives you some fairly good spots that if you want to do like a VOD review, or if you want to go back and watch the replay, or if you want to ask one of your buddies how you think that's best played there, it's very easy to kind of identify as to where when we were playing things like Shen Jarvan, it's like we knew some things were going wrong, but we weren't exactly pinpointing where it was. Now, I don't know if that's just the degree, because I play tons of aggro decks, and so these aggro problems are a little bit more apparent to me, as to where someone that plays a lot of mid-rangey combo decks probably feels a lot more comfortable with Shen Jarvan. But at least for me, I feel like these points with Annie Jhin are pretty apparent as to where either a fuck up happened, or a good point of discussion really turned up. And I think it's good to be able to kind of recognize those turning up. It's there's a thing that I talk about called decision weight, is to where a lot of the big brains out there like to play decks like Karma Set because you have to make a million decisions across the game, but in large part those decisions don't matter a lot. It just spend all of your mana as efficiently as you can, and then you'll just draw through it, and it doesn't matter, right? You're going to end the game with like 9 cards in hand, anyways. Doesn't matter if you played the high note instead of the Mystic Shot, or the Aftershock instead of something else. Like, it's just fairly straightforward with how it goes. And with a deck like Annie Jhin, and with aggro decks in general, you run into a lot of these spots as to where that one decision is huge. And so you may only be making 15 decisions in the game. You may go a game or two without making any big decisions, but it's those decisions are ultimately super critical. And if you make one wrong move, then you just lose. As to where control decks like Karma Set are a lot more forgiving. And so just the quantity of decisions that you have to make doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing more work, if you will. All right, how bad is this about to get? I don't want to really add anything else to the board. His board's too good at this point. Ideally, I mean, I think we just have to play Noxian Fervor this round. We're not going to stop the Fizz. We're not going to stop the Stylish Shot from going back into hand. But if he does, as I say, depending on how he does his hooks, we should be able to shut down the Stylish Shots and then still kill a unit while we're at it. And so it's not super ideal having to control a unit with the Noxian Fervor, but I think it's okay. And then we could actually go for Fizz, but I think Fizz is just more likely to die in combat. I want to kill off this 3/3, since it's just going to get so many value blocks across all of our units. All right, let's add all of our 1 health units first, so if opponent plays Make It Rain, they have the opportunity to kill off more stuff. See, this is another one of these spots with our friend Crimson Pigeon. I don't think we want to boost it. I mean, it is more relevant in this space, turning it into a 3/3. My worry with turning the Pigeon into a 3/3 is the opponent gets the Pull Shark block onto the Tusk Speaker. Maybe that's just okay. The other thing to worry about is the Samira flipping this turn. It's close. It's harder to do without the flare in hand, but all right, let's send him in. If he's going to flip the Samira, he's going to block the Precious Pet with it, and so I think we get enough damage in this way to not worry about it. But I definitely want to keep these Crackshot Corsairs at home. They just have too many opportunity to start giving the opponent value blocks here, and so I think they'll still produce more damage by not attacking this round. The chain, okay. I mean, that's got to feel good, right? We're like 15 and he's making, he's doing a little bit of digging and not adding units to the board. I think that's fair. We just got some big pickups here as well. The Mana Soul Imperial Demolitionist. Our attacks are going to look really good next turn. Alright. Pirouette and rip. Lose out on our friend Crimson Pigeon. You've been the source of most of our dilemmas for the day.
The weak don't deserve mercy.
For the Empire.
All right, got him real low.
You for the many.
Oh man. Okay. Well, he doesn't have the mana for the flare. I was like, oh no, what a disaster with him being able to hook in the Mana Soul Student,
Your
but
path ends here.
he's not taking it. Now I think we want to take this block onto Jagged Butcher. It's one of these spots to where we might actually get to add units to the board. I don't think we're going to, but we have lethal if he doesn't interact with us by taking that unit down. Right, we attack this way. It's 1 from the Mana Soul, 4 from the Crackshot Corsairs to get to that 5 damage Exacties. So if he blocks our Precious Pet, blocks our Samira, or blocks our Mana Soul, lethal comes in. Right, GG. Okay, final battle is here. Let's see if we can't get another victory under our belts. It's been that premium pirouette. That's the only reason we're having any success today. It's the only one. It's performed up to expectations. This Misfortune and Gnar. Gonna have to watch out for our 1-healthers again. But same deal. We got a nice 1 in Annie. The nice 2 in Tusk Speaker. We'll mulligan the other stuff away. See if we can't find some more early game stuff. We did it. So I'm gonna lead with Annie. It's like the opponent should only have access to 1 card that can kill an early Annie. That's gonna be a heavy metal, and I think it's just worth the risk. Like if he's taking his entire second turn to kill Annie, then I think it feels like a win, and then they shouldn't have too many units that can win a combat against her. Uh-oh. I can't feel good for opponent. Is he gonna pop us with the Make It Rain? Huh, that's scary. Let's see how much mana he spends. I'm intimidated. Alright, I'll block. It's like if he's just gonna AoE our team, I want to be able to get out in front of it. I worry about investing too much in this board as the powder keg sits here. We can kill it with pirouette, but we don't have any faster ways to do it. All right.
Donnie, wanna play with Tibbers?
Okay, that sounds like fun.
And then he has it. So weird. Like the reason that I came in and blocked the deckhand was like it doesn't make sense to attack with the deckhand and then still just have Make It Rain in your hand. Like why aren't you clearing that out first? It's very strange. But nonetheless, this is still okay. We can add in the bird, we can add in the Tusk Speaker, we can still follow up with pirouette. I appreciate him adding a unit that dies to pirouette. Give us a little bit of opportunity to recover from that Make It Rain. Looking good. Looking good. pick up this extra point of damage this turn. I think this one's pretty clear cut and not protecting our 1 health unit. Like he is going to generate a pokey stick next turn, but like does he ever really do anything with a pokey stick? It's so slow. So slow. This is where that gets dangerous, I guess. Alright, so we should be in a decent spot here. It sucks that we lost our unit. He doesn't get the pokey stick. I neglected to realize that that Gnar was going to flip. He did play that warning shot kind of out of nowhere, but we have our Jhin in a good spot. He's Lotus trapped up to 2, and so next turn, as we open with the Solari Sunhawk, we're going to get the Lotus trap for an additional target. A bit unfortunate that he's been smoking us with these powder kegs. We're going to just drop a stun onto the powder keg now. That's a bit of a bummer. Like we set up this board fantastically as to where if he just adds like a 5 drop to the board, we just get to smoke it with the stuns. But ooh, them powder kegs. But nonetheless, GG. Not a bad set of games. We can pull this up, talk about it a little bit more. And so again, you know, this is a very reasonable deck in a lot of ways. It can be a pretty good ladder climber, right? All of these games were fast. We just got our 8 games in plus an intro in just under 45 minutes. And so you get a lot of games in. And then it also is good against a large swath of the meta. We beat Fizz Samira twice. We beat Karma Set. Those are the good matchups. And so having good matchups against the 2 most common decks of the format, while also being pretty fast, turns this into a pretty good ladder climber. Just get the maximum number of games per minute in that you can. And so we like it there. In terms of the numbers in the deck, I mean, I think everything here is pretty fine. There's nothing that I've been ultimately pretty upset about. I haven't really like dug through all the cards that are currently available. I just assume the guy that managed to take second at the event is a little bit more skillful with the deck and has probably repped this game for this deck for 200 or 300 games and is pretty content with these numbers. And so, you know, again, it's a deck that's very good right now and something good to have in your wheelhouse as we come across the Eternal Season. This is a deck that's always been good across best of 3 formats. It may or may not be a good ladder grinder depending on how things play out, but it tends to be a surprisingly strong best of 3 deck pretty much always. And again, as we're jumping into the lands of Eternal and having more of a card pool for Jhin to have access to and access to Legion Rearguard, am I right? It gives you a lot of ways that you can really tweak this deck and still be effective as you move into the lands of Eternal. So, good stuff. I had fun with that. I hope you did too, because that is going to do it for us today. And so, hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way, and you had a good time watching. This is Bustin' Me. Thank you for being here.